As consumers, we like information quickly, we like it now. When it comes towards selling, as a B2B seller, we need to think like our consumers. One way we can think about that is, how do we communicate with them? Should you do email? Should you do texting? That's been a great debate forever. Now, let me leave you with this before we dive into this episode though. An email open rate on average is about 20%. A text message open rate? That's a different story. 98%. In this episode, my friend Matt Baglia, he's going to talk about why we should consider using text messages and how we should go about doing them effectively. Hey everyone, welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast here on YouTube on TSE TV. I'm your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we are going to talk about text messages and the power of text messages and how these text messages can help us in our sales effort. Today, we have a great guest on the show. His name is Matt Baglia, and he's the CEO of a company called Slick Text. Now, Matt comes with a lot of experience, not only with Slick Text. He's worked with many other organizations and brings a ton of wisdom. And as I mentioned with that stat in the beginning of the episode, yes, there's a power in text message, but there's a way that we can use it properly in our sales effort. I'm not telling you abandon email or abandon the phone. No way. Not even abandon LinkedIn. I love that stuff. But we're going to talk about how you can consider using text messages as well and how these can help you in your efforts. We're going to dive straight into the episode. Matt's going to give a little introduction to his company and go into the process. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Glad to be here.
Of course, man. We're excited to have you, excited to pick your brain a little bit. I mean, I bragged about you a little bit there in the teaser and some of the cool things that you're doing and whatnot in the company. But as we dive into this show here, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, man, and what you're doing?
Geez, well, I'm what you might consider to be an accidental CEO, right? Which comes out of, I think you actually see that story a lot in these growth stage startups that once upon a time were, running off the little cheesy server in somebody's apartment back in the day, right? It's been a wild ride over the last 9 years or so, and I've been wearing a lot of hats trying to kind of bootstrap this thing. And, my role's taken a lot of different shapes over the course of the last 9 years, and it's everything from marketing, sales, development, design, support, everything. But, I couldn't be more pumped about what we're doing. Slick Text is obviously an SMS marketing company that really focuses on, mid-market and enterprise now. And, we're powering the SMS programs for, almost 100,000 different users now. And we're just getting going. It's crazy.
Man, well, congratulations on that, man. That's pretty neat.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Why is SMS such a big deal right now, though? Like, I mean, I see there's so many companies like popping up with regards to trying to do something in that space, or existing companies trying to adopt some kind of SMS strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that if you compare SMS, whether with it as a communication channel, or a marketing channel, to things like email, as an example, right, or some of the more traditional forms of outreach. You think about it. Where's your phone? Your phone is within an arm's reach all the time, right? So, and the statistic I think stands at 98% of text messages are read within the first 5 to 10 minutes. And so you think about how powerful that is. SMS as it sits right now cuts through the clutter. And if you compare that to email, where it might get lost in a spam filter, a junk box, or whatever, people see SMS as a new form of communication that is very timely and direct. So it works really well, and businesses are super pumped on it because it's not a new channel, but it's a new channel which you need to reach your customers for sure.
I think one of the things I have to get out of my mind is I always saw that the cell phone, because the way that I'm 36, but the way that I was introduced to the idea of text messaging was that, and when I was doing a full-time software sales rep positioning, was like, that's somebody's private thing. That's their phone. That's private. And you reaching out to me on my on my phone texting me, it almost feels like an invasion of privacy. Or you're coming into, stay in the email, man. That's work stuff. Debunk that, please help me.
Yeah, so I think the big thing, and traditionally that you are exactly right, and we've seen, over the years, that's how most people think. But I think that the big differentiator is that with SMS, you must get permission to text people. Right.
Gotcha.
It is not like email. Like we have a prior business relationship. I can start sending you messages. That doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
People need to explicitly opt in, right? And that's what we try to tell the companies that we work with, is that you're holding something so precious.
Yeah.
You have the ability to land your message in the hands of anybody who wants to receive your messages, and they're going to read it almost immediately, right? So they need to opt in, and you need to treat every single send like it's worth its weight in gold, right? So permission is the key. Is people need to be able to opt in and provide their express consent in order to be texted.
As a B2B seller, though, how do I go about making that happen? I mean, I could see it probably like on a consumer side. If I'm selling,
Sure.
on my website, got an e-commerce company, hey, Matt, here's your order's coming up or whatever shipment's been sent. But how do I translate that into a B2B world?
Yeah, so B2B gets a little bit tougher when you think about B2B versus B2C. SMS marketing has been around in the B2C world for a long time, right? And we got there really early on, and we noticed, hey, this is going to be a real thing, and so we definitely got in at the right time, and we did a lot of things right. But B2B, it's been a little tougher, and there's been a lot more catching up, and so I think that the thing that is most important, regardless of who your customer is, that you always need to be bringing value, right? And so if you look at that, it's easy to bring value to an end consumer, right? We'll give you 20% off, or we'll hook you up with a couple deals over the course of a month if you sign up for our text program.
Yeah.
On the B2B side, it's different. I think about distributors who have a particular geographical region of the country that they are constantly selling to, retail outlets as an example, right? Or I've used the example in the past as a beverage distributor talking to a bunch of wine and liquor stores, that type of thing. At the end of the day, you need to understand what do my recipients, what do my contacts, what do my customers want, and what do they want to know about so bad that they're willing to let me into their personal network, right? They're going to let me. What do they want so badly that they're going to let me communicate in the same channels that is normally reserved for friends and family, right?
Yeah. So so you bring up some interesting points there, some good stuff. So one, if it's good enough, it sounds like the people are willing to do whatever. They're willing to give you their phone numbers because I know that Matt's going to trust. One, I trust him. He respects my stuff, my space. He's going to give me the stuff that I want to know, and I do want to know the stuff because I need it to help my business, or my life, whatever. So that's the next part to it. Let's talk mechanics now. Let's talk about strategies. You work with a bunch of different companies. You probably see how they, go about executing or doing this. Is this like in an opt-in? Because I'm telling you, Matt, I'm listening to the sales rep right now, oohing and ahhing, and they're like, yeah, man, we're going to start texting. We can get all this information. And I can see them start sending some stuff out, come, can we set an appointment? Can we buy something from you? But I know there needs to be a strategy. So if you don't mind, walk us through a strategy that a B2B company, and we could bring up a scenario. Let's just say I'm a software company selling, EHR, or let's say a CRM, selling a CRM. How do I go about collecting the information from people and then nurture that? And I know I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't practice any of this,
great.
guys.
No, I think it's an interesting question. And I think that, again, B2B is a tougher nut to crack with SMS marketing for sure. Typically what I tell people, again, regardless of B2B or B2C, SMS marketing works best when you have a subscriber base that wants to continue to receive messages over and over again, right? Do you have a repeat buyer? Do you have a repeat customer? That type of thing, right? So, I think about a situation where, hey, I'm selling software, And once I close that deal, the relationship is done, at least in terms of, the relationship between the salesperson and the buyer, the consumer, right? And, usually in in a software scenario, there's then, the customer success teams will take over and continue to nurture that. But, from an SMS marketing standpoint, that particular example gets to be tougher, right?
Yeah.
In the traditional sense of doing text message blasts, because, those situations are a lot more personal. So it's a lot less about the one-to-many and a lot more about the one-to-one, right? And so it doesn't mean that SMS doesn't work. It just changes a lot, right? And so we go think about SMS in terms of a method of communication that becomes a lot more convenient for people to be communicated through, right?
Yeah.
So, let's take that same exact example that you threw out. Maybe I'm already in contact with a person or a company, and we're, kind of going through the sales dance back and forth, and that process lasts for, a couple months. And, I'm trying to get something on the calendar, or I need a quick question, or I need this or that. How often does your phone ring and you hit ignore because you're in a meeting? It's happened to me twice since we've started the podcast here. So,
tell them it's my time, Matt.
I know. No, I just took my watch off so I can ignore it. The idea is that, why do we have all those buttons on the phone? In meeting, can't answer. Hey, can't talk right now. What's going on? The reason why we send a text message is because we probably care about who that person is and what they want to either communicate or get from us, but we just can't do it via, we can't do it via phone. So as you think about the B2B thing, we see a lot of companies that are, using it that way, use it for more like interpersonal communication, right? Say, hey, just wanted to follow up on this real quick. Were you guys interested in us adding this to the scope of work? Or what about this, this, and this, right? And so it's more of a, hey, I don't want to talk to you on the phone for 20 minutes, but we, we just need a kind of a quick thing. And so, again, most people, when they think SMS marketing, they're talking about blasts, and that's all well and great. In this particular case, not so much. If I go back to the example of the beverage distributor talking to their whatever it is, so I've got upstate New York, or I've got wherever, it's a little different, right? Because those people are constantly buying, right? They want to know about things that are in stock, out of stock, right? And so what they typically will do is they will start off doing a text message blast. They'll say, hey, we've just got this in stock, or hey, we're running low on this, or hey, you interested in an order? And then as people respond, that kicks off a bunch of individual conversations, either by phone or by text. And so it allows them to kind of work out deals and orders through SMS.
Yeah. No, very interesting. And so the idea of being able to initiate a one-to-one conversation, taking advantage of text message as a means of communication to go about doing that, and then obviously for repeat businesses, you can go ahead and take and use it in that capacity. When it comes towards your solution, is it more for designed for like those blasts, or is it a combination of both of both, where you can do the one-offs? Like, I mean, is that scalable? Or I guess what I'm getting at is, as a sales rep, can I use that, or do I have to go through marketing to be able to help develop something like that in place? Am I making sense with that?
Yes. So with SlickText, you can definitely do both, and we've recognized the need for that, right? So as we started with SlickText, it was just, hey, do big blasts, do SMS blasts, right? And that's great. And then we realized, okay, well, there's a need for segmentation so that we can start to hyper target these people based upon the interests that they might have, right? But it was also really necessary to be able to receive those responses, right? And then as those messages are coming in, being able to have the one-on-one communication without it going back to everybody else. So I'm sure you've probably been trapped in a group text message before where everybody's responding and, you hate your life for that time period. So, our software kind of mitigates that as well, because somebody can respond and it goes into a private thread. And as you're chatting with them, you can say, oh, this is the person's name, click. and, oh, this is what this person is interested in, click.
Yeah.
And so you start to develop a profile on them. But, notice the difference between this and what I had said previously is that there becomes an ongoing engagement with these people over the course of multiple transactions versus hey, I've sold to you once and I'm probably not going to talk to you again, at least in this capacity.
Yeah, it's a little bit more forthright, a little bit more with it. I'm thinking about, like, say, cold outreach or cold prospecting from that perspective. Have you ever seen anyone being successful with text messaging, reaching out to somebody cold? I guess it's kind of tough because you don't have permission at that point yet, unless they're in your database and they're giving you permission.
Well, so it's an interesting point. So technically speaking, and by no means do I condone this, but technically speaking, at least in the eye of United States law, if I was to send you a random text message just to you, say I got a hold of your phone number on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever, and I wanted to sell you something. If I put that number into SlickText and I sent you a personal message and hit send, it's no different than me just calling you for the first time and saying, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? Right? It's no different than if I put that number in my cell phone and sent you a text message. So the thing is it's going to be very poorly received, right? Especially like I think I'm 35 and I get cold outreach on my phone and it's not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's where SMS doesn't work well. But you think about it in terms of like an inbound strategy, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's for jobs or for this, hey, if you're interested in learning more, text this to this short code, right? Yeah. And then you start to pull people who have interest in, and then you can have conversations with those people, right? So in terms of cold outreach, it's never that well received, honestly. And we typically encourage people to stay away from it in that regard.
Companies have things on their website to collect email addresses for opt-ins. Do you recommend, in addition to the email, they ask for the phone number, or substitute this phone number? I mean, the email for the phone number. What's your strategy on that? And let's say I do have that. What are some ways that we can nurture and lead somebody down the conversion path via text message?
Yeah, that's a good question too. So yes, definitely collect their email and collect their phone number. Yeah. Some people might be hesitant to give their phone number, so you definitely want to be asking for both, as most people carry a burner email, right? But it's a little harder to have a burner phone. So people do it, but get that, right? And there's good practice. The best practice for that is that if you put your phone number in, that you check a box and there's some specific compliance verbiage there that satisfies the laws in the United States, right? But also satisfies the requirements that are set forth by the carriers if you're going to be using short codes and things like that. But what we strongly recommend is a double opt-in there. So somebody puts their phone number in, they check the box, they hit, okay, put in my information. That person should get a message back immediately saying, hey, just to confirm your subscription or to confirm your permission to receive text messages, reply yes. When that person replies yes, you're in a pretty good spot to now start messaging them, pending the appropriate compliance verbiage on that form. Yeah. But we have a lot of customers who do that. And it's great because once people come in, you can look at what page that they filled that form out on, right? Other information they've given, and you can take them down different paths depending on the actions they do or do not take. And I almost mentioned earlier, so we're developing a feature that is about ready for launch called automated workflows. And, the idea is that we're trying to get, our goal is to get to a place where you can hyper target your customers so well and in an automated fashion that your segments are really segments of one. They are so dialed in that every single text message is providing value and is extremely relevant because we have enough information about the subscriber that it becomes worth it for them. So when somebody fills out that form, if you're doing it well, you should know what page they did it on, why they filled it out in the first place, and you start to collect information. And we should track, did they click or did they not click on the first text message that we sent them back, right? Well, let's wait 5 minutes. Did they take that secondary or tertiary action? And if they did, then we'll ask for more because they're engaged. Or if they didn't, let's wait some time for them to free up and then maybe poke them and say, hey, did you get this? And kind of get their, develop their appetite for communication via SMS and about your product in general.
I'm sure, again, this is another thing I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sure you have tons of experience with it, but or folks, do you have any clients, you don't have to say names, but any arbitrary story or any ideas about how they've been able to implement text message and saw a difference in their sales performance?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just thinking of some of the customers that I've personally worked with. We've gotten to the point where I'm not on the ground level nearly as much as I have been in years
Sure.
past. But what I've kind of seen is that, generically speaking, most companies have a goal of growing a text messaging list that is just huge and powerful, and then collecting a bunch of information about them so that they can target the customers. It's kind of a generic strategy at 50,000 feet, right?
Mm.
But as you kind of get a little closer and start understanding what the goals are for each user, each business, each industry or use case, it varies quite a bit. And so, we could probably sit here for a while and talk about use cases. In the B2B side, I pull up the beverage distributor because that is a use case that I recall hearing
Yeah.
about not too long ago, right? And exactly that is learning who the customer is, when they buy, how much they buy, all of those things, and then building out your segmentation. SlickText provides a really robust tool set for dialing those segments in. It's almost like building out segments in Google Analytics, where you can define all of these different characteristics and then say, hey, who on my list matches that? Everything
Yeah.
from what the contact looked like to the behavior that they have taken elsewhere.
Mm.
So, again, on the B2B side, the big thing is it's worth it if you have a repeat customer.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher if you don't. If you don't, you need to use it more as an inbound channel, because people might, if you think people are more willing in a lot of cases to send a text message and collect a little bit more information than pick up the phone, get on a call, wait to talk to somebody, and then have that person suck you through the sales process and ask you a whole bunch of questions and turn it into a conversation. So, and if you think about, I think about my kids, I have an 11-year-old who is plugged into his phone nonstop. And it's funny because I'll text my wife and I'll see that read receipt come through and say read,
Sure.
maybe, few minutes later, whatever. I don't think it hasn't been once where I've texted my son and it hasn't been read immediately. So he's super plugged into it. So think about who we're going to be selling to in the next 10 years or sooner. They are so plugged in that messaging in general is going to be the primary way that they communicate, because as you see, they're going to lose their personal their skill to be able to talk to people and engage with people. So you got to go where the money is, though, and it's going to be communicating through SMS for sure.
I saw this video on social media. I think it was on Instagram. There was it says this tells you how old you are. So it asked a couple people. If I told you need to call somebody, if you're trying to tell somebody what you need to call them without saying something, what would you do? And so some of the older parents would do it like this. This is what I would do: use a phone signal. And then when they ask Gen Z and Gen X, the younger kids, they all did their hands like this. If I need to call somebody, I'll do it like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, weird. I never thought about that.
And it's not necessarily bad. It's just different, right?
It is.
It's just different, and and if you look at us or our parents talking about their parents, it's just a generational complaint from generation to generation. But there's no doubt that we're living in the time of SMS right now. It is a great way to communicate and cut through that clutter. You have to be careful about not being too intrusive. There's very, very easy ways to go about being not intrusive, but it's also very easy to annoy people if you do it the wrong way.
I'm a sales rep and I'm a sales leader. I heard this episode and I'm thinking about doing it. What should be my first step?
Yeah, call us. Let us help you figure it out.
Can I text you? Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the first question that you're going to ask yourself is are my customers repeat buyers? Because that is going to take you down one path or another. We need to work. If no, we need to work on an inbound strategy that offers up value in other, like whether it's online or on billboard or wherever in print, and gets people to opt in, right? And then if it's not, then it's about communicating how you can start growing a list and communicating the value that people are going to get by joining. That would be the first thing, right? It's one way or the other. And then from there, you start to develop your strategy. And a lot of it is seeing what works. Everybody's customer base is different. We always recommend A/B testing.
Yeah.
Seeing what works, making one small variation off of a control and seeing how people respond. And you continue to improve little by little.
Love it, man. Well, folks out there listening to this want to get in touch with you, want to connect with you, Matt, and learn about some of the cool things you're doing. What's the best way for them to go about doing so?
Yeah, I think that they could reach out to us via email at info@slicktext.com. You can visit our website at slicktext.com and reach out to us. There's a ton of different ways to get connected. And, our team is great, super knowledgeable, and they'd love to have every conversation that anybody wants to have. So, we would look forward to that. And I think that's maybe a small plug for SlickText, but one of the things that we do quite a bit differently is we do help to develop strategies versus kind of just take your money, give you the software, and send you out the door. We want you to be here long term. We want you to be successful, and we're going to take the knowledge that we developed over the thousands upon thousands of conversations and help apply them to the people who are serious about it.
Yeah, that's good, man. I've seen companies do that, and I've signed up for those where you start doing their stuff, and it just feels like I take it, so to speak, and figuratively put it on a shelf because I didn't really get that guidance on how to execute it, and then end up canceling. So
yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Great job, man. Congratulations on what you're doing. Thank you so much for parting some of your wisdom with us. We appreciate you taking the time to come on the show.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. It's been great.
Listen, that was Matt Baglia, and if you'd like to connect with him and learn more about him and his amazing organization, I want you to go back to our show notes. You can find all the details there, and as you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can just tap on the cover art and scroll down, and you'll see all the amazing information. We have links going back to Matt's website and some of the great things that they're doing, as well as if you are watching this on YouTube, you can just scroll down. You can see information before the comments there, a little summary that we put together so you can get a better understanding of Matt and some of the great things that they're doing. We share stuff like this because we want to help you. We want you to succeed. I want you guys to thrive. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to be able to close more deals. But most importantly, I want to challenge you each and every single day to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.